Photosynthesis is the process by which green plants and other organisms use sunlight to synthesize food from water and carbon dioxide. Photosynthesis takes place in the chloroplast of plant cells. Chlorophyll that is in the plant can trap some of the light that strikes it and then use that energy from the light to break molecules apart. So you have the light and dark stages of photosynthesis. Photosynthesis follows two distinct stages, a light dependent stage and a light independent or dark stage. In the light-dependent stage, water is split into hydrogen and oxygen. The oxygen is given off as a byproduct of photosynthesis. The dark stage does not need light. That does not say that light does not occur. It means that light is not needed. In the dark stage, hydrogen is combined with oxygen to produce glucose. The glucose made in photosynthesis can be used in many ways. These ways include it is broken down during respiration to produce or release energy so that plants can carry out the process of life. It is also converted to starch and stored in the leaf to be used in the night when the plant is not carrying out photosynthesis. It is also converted to sucrose and transported to other parts of the plant, where it can be converted to carbohydrates, lipids, and proteins, and is used for growth or converted to starch and stored. An example is potatoes. What is respiration and why is respiration important? Think about that. Respiration is the release of energy from food and it occurs in all cells. Respiration must be done to provide us with energy. This energy is needed for movement. There are two types of respiration. There are aerobic respiration and anaerobic respiration. Aerobic respiration. Every cell in living organism needs energy. Cells get their energy from food. The energy that is released from food in the presence of oxygen is called respiration. So that's aerobic respiration. Respiration occurs in the mitochondria of cells. Respiration, when energy is released from glucose, it is stored in the molecule called ATP. Respiration takes place inside the mitochondria where ATP is made. Occasionally, the body requires more energy. However, the ability to produce energy is limited to how much oxygen can get to the muscles. So, what the body will do now is to respire anaerobically. AN means without. Anaerobic respiration is respiration that occurs without oxygen. Aerobic respiration is when glucose is combined with oxygen to release energy. Anaerobic respiration occurs when glucose is broken down to release energy and the lactic acid is produced in the process. An example is yeast during the fermentation to make beer. Okay, so if this type of respiration continues to occur long enough, there will be an oxygen debt. This is the accumulation of lactic acid in the body. The result of the result of which is that lactic acid has to be removed by oxygen, which we continue to breathe into the body after a long activity or after the long activity has passed. We must also remember that diffusion of oxygen into the bloodstream is passive. As a result, oxygen may not get to the cells that need it quickly enough in strenuous or vigorous exercise or activities. The primary function of the respiratory system is the supply of oxygen to the blood, so this in turn delivers oxygen to all the parts of the body. The respiratory system does this while breathing is taking place. During the process of breathing, we inhale oxygen and exhale carbon dioxide. This exchange of gases takes place in the alveoli. Meanwhile, the waste-rich blood from the vein releases its carbon dioxide into the alveoli. The carbon dioxide follows the same path out of the lung when you exhale. Respiration takes place with the aid of the mouth, the nose, the trachea, the lungs, the diaphragm, and intercostal muscles. Oxygen enters the respiratory system through the mouth and the nose. The oxygen then passes through the larynx and the trachea. In the chest cavity, the oxygen splits into two bronchi. Each bronchus then divides again, forming the bronchial tubes. The bronchial tubes lead directly into the lungs where they divide. Breathing. Breathing is the muscular movement of the respiratory tract, which keep the respiratory surface supplied with oxygen. In other words, breathing is the intake of oxygen and the release of carbon dioxide. The breathing system. The breathing system parts and purposes. The nose or the mouth. It makes air warm, moist, and filtered before reaching the lungs. The cilia, thin air-like projection found in the trachea or bronchi, which filters bacteria and dust and other particles. The epiglottis is a piece of cartilage at the top of the trachea, preventing food from entering the windpipe. The bronchi, we have two bronchi extending from the trachea, branching into smaller and smaller tubes called the bronchioles. We have the larynx, which contains the vocal cords which produce sound. We have the alveoli, with, which consists of tiny hair-like sacs where glucose exchange takes place. Breathing is mechanical. The mechanism of breathing is handled by three muscles. These are the external and the internal intercostal muscles and also the diaphragm muscle. These three muscles continuously exchange the volume of they continuously change the volume of the thorax. As a result of the volume increases, air is drawn in. If it decreases, air is pushed out. When we breathe in, the internal intercostal muscle contracts, the diaphragm flattens, and the volume of the thorax increases and air is drawn in. When we breathe out, the external intercostal muscle contracts and the diaphragm returns to its dome shape. The volume of the thorax decreases and air is pushed out. What is vital capacity? Vital capacity is the maximum amount of air a person can expel from the lungs after a maximum inspiration. It is equal to the inspiratory reserve volume plus the tidal volume plus the respiratory reserve volume. Inspiratory reserve volume is the maximal amount of additional air that can be drawn into the lungs by the determined effort after normal respiration. Expiratory reserve volume is the additional amount of air that can be expired from the lungs by determined efforts after normal respiration. The tidal volume is the lung volume representing the normal volume of air displaced between normal inspiration and the expiration when extra effort is not applied. Residual volume is the amount of air that can be removed from the lungs by expiration.